Scholastic Audio presents Lighting the Fire, Book 2 of Fate, the Winx Saga by Sarah Rees Brennan. Read by Lauren Irwin with Fiona Hardingham, Joel Frumpkin and Rosie Jones.
Your friend Riven needs to have a breakthrough, and soon, said Silver. I'm tired of watching him choke. Sky made a face. Yeah, that wasn't great. The other specialists had all trickled back to the hall as light ebbed from the sky. Riven had run out of class as though he was on fire, when, in fact, he'd got his ass dumped in the lake. It was just Sky and Silver now, the way Sky liked it best. But Silver was frowning, and that always made Sky's heart sink. You've been insisting on training with him all year, but he's not getting any better. You should diversify to keep up your skill levels. Sky wasn't ready to give up on Riven yet, but he didn't argue with Silver. He never did that. He nodded instead. Silver's frown turned thoughtful. The problem is, none of them are at your level. You're head and shoulders above the rest. Sky knew he was. He'd worked hard to be the best, to make Silver proud of him. Sky waited in case Silver maybe wanted to say he was proud of Sky. Silver didn't. That was fine, though. It was understood between them. I'll get some of the specialist teams to come into the school for this orientation day of Pharaohs and give demonstrations, Silver decided out loud. Sky hesitated. So, I'll just keep sparring with Riven until then. Silver gave a curt nod. Sky was relieved. He hadn't spent a ton of time with people his own age, except for Stella. He was always with Silver, receiving the world's most personal army training. Sky was ready to be an army of one and live up to his father's legacy. He knew Silver had raised him for that purpose. It was just that it got lonely being an army of one. He tried to befriend Sam Harvey, Professor Harvey's son, by offering to teach him sword work once. Sam and Sam's little sister gave Sky matching appalled stares, and Sky politely receded. It was for the best, anyway. He figured he'd have more in common with a specialist. Another specialist would be stoked to learn all Sky knew, and when he was enrolled at Althea, he'd be assigned a roommate. How handy was that? The school officially arranged a friend for you. Sky had been certain having a roommate would be great. Sky had to admit Riven wasn't what he'd had in mind, but he and Riven had known each other a while and were pretty friendly at archery tournaments. They'd had several pleasant enough conversations about arrowheads. Plus, Riven did have potential on the field. If he'd listen to Sky and shape up, he'd actually be good. And Riven was funny sometimes, though a lot of what he said was disrespectful, so Sky didn't encourage him by smiling at it. Sky had been hoping for a fellow soldier, dedicated to duty like he was, so they could have a brothers-in-arms bond like his dad and Silver had. An unbreakable bond, stronger than death. There was nobody at Althea who Sky felt was remotely a candidate to have an unbreakable bond with, so Riven was pretty much Sky's best friend, and Sky would continue helping him out during lessons. As long as Silver permitted it, Sky would never cross his commander. Sky gave Silver a grateful smile. I can keep my skill levels up by myself. Hey, I run 10 circuits around the grounds every day, sunrise and sunset, just like you and Dad used to. He thought Silver might be pleased by that. Silver did smile faintly, but it didn't last. When I say I want you to be like your father, you know I mean that I want you to be better, right? How am I supposed to do that? Sky's inner insubordinate voice, which sounded more and more like Riven these days, asked, There are no monsters left to fight. How am I supposed to outdo a war hero when there's no more war? I'll try, Sky said. Whenever he felt like Silver's expectations of him were unreasonable, Sky knew he was letting everybody down. Silver just wanted Sky to be the best he could be. It was how Silver showed he cared about Sky. Every time Sky was the best, Sky proved he was worth caring for. He'd run 12 circuits around the grounds from now on, he promised himself, giving Silver a smile and setting off. It wasn't being a war hero, but it was something. From this distance and this direction, the branches of the trees cut shadows across the gleaming blue of the barrier, their protection against evil, as though someone had torn pieces in it. Nobody had, Sky knew. Althea was safe, thanks to the sacrifices of heroes like his dad. "Can't I call you Dad?" Sky had asked Silver once when he was little and stupid, leaning against Silver's legs on a day when he'd done especially well at training, so he thought Silver might be more likely to agree. Silver had taken Sky by the shoulders and shook him, roughly enough so tears sprang into Sky's eyes. Sky didn't let the tears fall. "No," Silver said with cold fury. "You had a father, Sky. He was a hero. He saved lives. Neither of us can ever forget him." Silver's eyes bored through Sky's sometimes, looking at Sky so hard it felt like Silver was looking through him at someone else. People said Sky looked a lot like his dad. Sky understood that day. Silver was raising him because of his dad. It was betraying his dad and Silver both to want a dad who was here to hug him. Racing someone only he could see under the long shadows of the trees at Althea, Sky pushed himself further and felt his lungs burn.